I grew up in the Baptist faith. I was baptized at age 9, asking my pastor if he would baptize me at that time, because my father had recently passed away. My faith remained very important to me, and I raised my children in the Lutheran faith. But on May 8, 1979, my life was turned upside down. I came home from a shopping trip, and as I approached my driveway, I waited at the end of the driveway for a moment, looked at my watch, and I said, my 16-year-old daughter would not be getting off the bus for another 10 minutes. So I drove up to the house, and I saw Marlis's car in the yard, as usual. So I pulled up beside her car, and as I went in the lower level, I called, "Marcy?" And she did not answer. And also, my St. Bernard did not bound down the stairs to meet me as she always did. We found out later that she had been locked in my bedroom and could not save my daughter. As I went to the office, I noticed that Marlis was leaning up against my little third-grade school desk, and she was totally covered in blood from severe blow to the head, to her head. Friends and I called the sheriff's department to dispatch an ambulance, and the police came, the ambulance came. I was an EMT at the time, and I knew that there was nothing I could do to save my daughter. So she was rushed to St. Paul Ramsey, which is now Regions Hospital, and family and friends gathered and prayed for a miracle. I prayed and prayed. I knew that God could help me, but there was just nothing that could be done at that point. She had a 5% chance of surviving. My pastor was there, as well as friends and family, and he offered prayers of hope and healing and comfort. But that hope vanished on May 10, and her wish to be a donor was honored. This truly is a parent's worst nightmare. Marlis was buried May 12th, the day before Mother's Day. Marlis was an innocent victim. Just weeks later, my son Ray was in a motorcycle accident and had a 50-50 chance of surviving. By that time, I just turned everything over to God. There was nothing I could do. I mean, I was a mess. I was just in pieces. But without a strong faith, I really don't think I could have survived. My son had to go through many months of therapy, and I channeled all of my energy into getting him well. Therefore, I suppressed my grief for my daughter. The following year, Jack and I got married and merged two families together. I lived in fear in that area. The murder took place in Afton, and Jack and I bought a house in Stillwater. But everywhere I went, I was looking over my shoulder because we did not know who killed Marlis or why. 10 months later, after we got married, we moved to Pennsylvania. After settling into our new home in Pennsylvania, we immediately found a church home. It was Presbyterian, but that was okay. Up to now, I had not dealt with my grief from Marlis's death, and the pain began to affect my health. Excuse me. I went to the doctor to find out what was wrong, because I had pains in my stomach, I had pains in my heart, I had pains everywhere. And this was a new doctor. He had never seen me before. So, of course, he ran every test imaginable on me to see what was wrong and could find nothing physically wrong with me. But he said, "Has anything unusual happened to you lately?" And as the tears started to flow, he heard the story. And he said, "I think you should have counseling. You can meet with your pastor. I'm sure he would, guide you in the right way, or I'd be happy to give you counseling." So I decided to go to my pastor. And my pastor immediately said, "Well, there's a bereavement support group starting here, and I think you should go there." And he got another bereaved parent come and take me to that very first meeting. Jack didn't go, of course. He went to seminary to find answers to why God had let this tragedy happen. And he found out, like Job, that we will only have answers when we stand before God. I found that helping others was my path to healing, and God had given me the gift of compassion. I also went to seminary, joined Jack, but he was in the real seminary, and I was in the layman's program. We graduated in the same ceremony. We wrote a book called I Wasn't Ready, and it was picked up by Westminster John Knox Press and put out under the title Surviving the Death of a Child. That book, I don't have copies of it. It's on one of those print by demand now after a number of years. At the time, I was also editor of a Compassionate Friends newsletter. Every month, I would write an article giving hope and healing to those who were in grief, whose child had died. Those articles went into a book called Butterflies, Angels, and Roses. It has been almost 32 years now since Marlis died. And you may ask, how have we coped? We were involved in a lot of faith-based groups, worked Habitat for Humanity, and we were involved in Central American issues, even leading delegations to the region, because helping others was where we focused our time. Jack was asked to go on the Presbyterian Church task force that was studying the Central American issues. And when he came back, he had gone to Nicaragua, which was at war. He had gone to El Salvador, which was at war. And he said, "But, you can go to Nicaragua, but it's not safe in El Salvador." That was in December of 1986. And in March of 1987, I was in El Salvador. And I was accompanying the mothers of the disappeared. I just felt like I was part of the suffering in the world, and this nation had suffered so much, and so many people had been killed, and I knew their pain. So I was willing to stand with them on that day that they were marching for their loved ones. On the 10th anniversary, we went to Guatemala because May 10th is always Mother's Day in that nation. Isaiah 61 verse 3 states, "He gave me beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, a garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. I am a tree of righteousness, a planting of the Lord, that he might be glorified." Excuse me again. I'm just recovering. On the 20th anniversary of Marlis's death, we hosted an organizational meeting in our home, forming a bereavement support group in the neighborhood to which we had just moved. And that chapter, by the way, is still active after all these years. And there were over 311 names on the list when we were there. Matthew 18, verse 20 says, "For where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am there among them." One afternoon, Jack showed me a magazine that had an advertisement that said, "Switzerland is hardly extravagant." Switzerland is the home of the St. Bernards, and Jack and I first met, each having a St. Bernard on a leash. I asked Jack to go downstairs and get a book I had on the St. Bernards. When he brought it back, I found an essay Marlis had written for school on the St. Bernards. We then realized that Marlis was still giving us messages after all those years. We then realized our dream and went to the hospice of the Grand St. Bernard in Switzerland. It's near the Italian border. Not only did we see the wonderful dogs, we had a visit with one of the priests at the hospice. Father Jean-Marie gave us some chocolate and took us to the chapel where he prayed for us. The motto of the monastery is, "This is where Christ is adored and fed." We felt God's presence at that time. Father Jean-Marie cried when I told him about what happened to Marlis, and he blessed us. Once again, God was truly present. On the 30th anniversary, May 10, 2009, we went dancing. Is that okay for us to dance, you might ask? After waiting almost 20 years, Psalm 30, verse 11 and 12 reads, "You have turned my mourning into dancing. You have taken off my sackcloth and clothed me with joy, so that my soul may praise you and not be silent. O Lord, my God, I will give thanks to you forever." After waiting almost 20 years for answers to why and who killed Marlis, the perpetrator is now serving 6 consecutive life terms for killing his victims. Jack wrote the book Justice for Marlis, which tells the story of our commitment for justice for Marlis as well as for the other victims. We were able to reclaim our life back in Minnesota after that without fear. During those years, my faith kept me sane, allowed me to walk the path to healing with the confidence that God is always with me, walking that path with me. I feel comforted that Marlis is in heaven with God. Finding our Saviour's Lutheran Church has been a real joy for me. I have been welcomed by so many Christian friends. Our Saviour's has given me a place not only to worship, but to serve. Jack and I write a column in the Iceni County News titled "The Path to Healing," and have helped start a bereavement support group here at Our Saviour's. Those of you who are living with overwhelming pain of having a loved one die should join us. We meet on the 1st and 3rd Monday of every month. It is a safe place where you can remember your loved one. Learn that what you are feeling not only is normal, but is shared by others. You need not be alone. Everything we do in memory of Marlis and in honor of our 5 living children. As Jesus says in John 13:34, "A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another, even as I have loved you, that you also love one another." If we accept the challenge of Christ to love others as he has loved us, we will be healed. In this life, we will give honor to the memory of our child or loved one. When finally we stand before God, we and our child or loved one will be fully healed in God's love. Reach out in peace.